Hi, welcome. Good afternoon, really good afternoon. To give us some time as we let the rest of the attendees come in. Welcome. Today is the session with our Tcube community on tech series where we will be talking on the role of 5G in revolutionizing the visitor experience. So we have quite a full room today. So please bear with us while we'll start in a few minutes while we let all the guests come into the room. All right, and a really good afternoon to all our audience here who are with us on a Wednesday afternoon. So, welcome and welcome to another session of the Tcube series with our community. So, I think many of you here, if you have been on our mailing list and joining Tcube series, it's great to see everybody yet again in the afternoon. And for those who are with us for the really first time, just a quick introduction on Tcube, or as we call it, the Tourism Technology Transformation Cube. This is a hybrid innovation space that brings STB's digital initiatives, resources, and thought leadership content onto a single platform. The role of Tcube is definitely to support the tourism stakeholders, like all of you here, in your digital transformation journey. So what we have alongside with the STB team is to curate a series of learnings and also opportunities to test and build together with partners, leveraging on digital resources to help transform the tourism sector. So for today, it's really interesting. We've been talking about in the last couple of sessions on IoT, on SaaS, on everything digital, and we want to focus on how our industry can leverage on 5G to revolutionize the customer journey. We have very interesting speakers alongside with us, as you see on your screen. It's application owners on their experiences and learnings. So alongside with us, we have Michael Ma, who's from Sentosa Development Corporation, Muhammad Fidawas from Singtel, Muhammad Hadi from National Heritage Board, and Woon Yang, who's from M1. So all of them will be presenting two very unique case studies with us to hopefully inspire more possibilities in this space, and hopefully to encourage all of you to also do a bit of experimentation in welcoming or embracing 5G in your particular work. So kickstarting this, we want to start by, of course, to demystify 5G. I think when we hear about new technologies, or it gets a bit complicated and complex. So as we were curating this session, one of the key agenda, it is definitely how can we demystify and first understand the possibilities of all these applications. And afterwards, we would hear from two very unique case studies. We have invited both the solutions provider and the client to share how they embrace this innovation to create experiences for their visitors. Last but not least, as always, there will be Q&A session where we open up to all of you, our industry partners, to ask all the questions. This is really an opportune time to ask all the difficult questions and the questions that you may find it challenging along the way, or challenges that you face along the way. So as I mentioned, Tcube, we want this community of ours to be a platform for learning and sharing. So please feel welcome to do so. As this is virtual, which means that you can ask questions all session long. So just if you think of any questions along the way, feel free to pop them in the question and answer tab. We will highlight those questions and I'll go to those questions throughout the session, and especially during the last portion of audience Q&A with our speakers. Yes, so okay, so with that in mind, I do want to give space to all speakers and more time for them to share. Kickstarting this, we would like to invite Firdaus, who's going to share an overview of 5G trends and, of course, the latest case studies, examples, or at least share with us a little bit more about what is this 5G all about and how it can impact all of us. So with that, I'll introduce Firdaus.
Thank you, Vivian. Hey, hello everyone. I'm Firdaus here. So let me put up my slide. All right. And yes, first of all, thank you, Tcube from STB for inviting me to share a bit of the 5G overview. My name is Mohamed Firdaus. I'm actually leading a team of 5G product in Singtel. So today, I just want to give a bit of overview what 5G is, right? I think you have heard what 5G is about, but just wanted to make sure that everyone's aligned. What are the capabilities and what are the potential use cases that we could use 5G as a connectivity medium, right? But before we actually go into the detail, let's take one step back, right, and understand and try to see how cellular technology has evolved over the years, right? I think probably some of you may have heard about 1G, which was happening, 40 years ago. We started off cellular technology with the intention of just making voice communication, and that was what 1G was about. And then 10 years later, we started to introduce 2G. And that's where, SMS messaging started to be introduced. And people start to interact between voice and SMS as a medium to communicate. Then shortly, 10 years later, 3G was introduced. And this is where the beginning of the mobile broadband. At that time, the speed was in the tens of kilobits per second. But I think it was good enough at that time, to experience some kind of mobile broadband experience. And there was also, a circuit called video. I remember there was a small phone video screen, for you to communicate to each other. Then in 2010, and that's where, mobile broadband really comes to kick in, right? Because with 4G, we were able to actually get megabit speed. And this is where, users start to use mobile devices, to do streamings, to do interaction with the cloud, right? And I think this is where, mobile broadband start to kick in. And 10 years now, I mean, in 2020, 5G was then introduced. And this is where, the technology, where we are talking here is not just a one-way interaction, but it's more of interaction between two parties, right? And it could be human to human and human to machine and vice versa. And we believe that, with 5G, it actually can unfold, open up the limitation that that we see in the current 4G capabilities. And in my next slide, which often I get questions, right? What is the difference between 4G and 5G, right? And as we can see from here is that in terms of data speed, 5G can provide 10 times much faster than 4G, right? And then in terms of latency, it can actually provide 3 to 5 times faster, in terms of latency. And in terms of the connection density, right, in terms of how much user can it support in a particular area, 5G can support 100 times more compared to 4G. And lastly, in terms of the mobility speed, this is when, when things are in the move, how much, speed or how fast can it actually provide in terms of more coverage and throughput. We are talking about 2 times. So you can see here is that, with 5G, it actually gives a better throughput and lower latency. And what does that mean, for industry like tourism, right? So if you look at, this slide, where it actually shows the y-axis, the latency and the bandwidth. we believe that 5G would actually address the use cases at the top right corner, which I've boxed it up in red. And these are the applications that actually are very time sensitive, and actually require high throughput, right? And in terms of tourism, you can actually look into enabling immersive, XR, cloud gaming, and even a high resolution, streaming, right? And we believe that these are the use cases that is relevant in tourism, and then it actually can be used 5G as a medium for connectivity, right? But having said that, 5G is just, I would say, 3 years old, where it was just launched in Singapore, and also when it was introduced in standard, right? So in terms of challenges, if you look at it, uh, devices are still at the very early stage where we have limited 5G native equipment, right? And in terms of when we engage to customers, they are typically today in a brownfield where they have Wi-Fi and fixed network, and they're actually looking into ways of how they could actually evolve and upscale to 5G. So, they will require some kind of business case analysis to analyze why they should go from 4G to 5G, or from Wi-Fi to 5G. And if you look at in terms of the use cases, right, when we start to introduce use cases on 5G, they are a bit more complex. And that's something that we can actually share in our case study later, in the later part of this seminar. But having said that, there are opportunities for industries in tourism can actually embrace 5G, because 5G coverage are becoming more ubiquitous in Singapore. And also, we believe that there are strong ecosystem partners and solutions that are already starting to work together with us to enable 5G content and 5G solutions. And we can see that in the market here is that there are growing interests of industries to doing trials and adopt 5G. So lastly, this is my slide. In terms from Singtel perspective, we are able to work with partners to enable and walk the talk with them to adopt 5G. We have a complete one platform where we actually provide 5G connectivity, edge computing, and also service orchestration. And this was patented in Singapore, Australia, and USA. And in addition to that, we also have a lab, where we actually can help our partners and developers to actually showcase some of the capabilities using our test bed as a sandbox, to really materialize some of the use cases that they have to deploy. And lastly, from Singtel perspective, we are the front runner when it comes to 5G. We have first operationalized 5G with commercial and live production, and hence we can actually give our experience and share our learnings with our partners. So that's all that I have, and I hope I give a generic overview what 5G is. Over to you, Vivian.
Thank you so much, Firdaus. I think definitely the application of 5G based technologies in tours, activities, segment is definitely helping us to see how it can enhance destination experiences or even tourism experiences. So today, really very excited to have two very strong case studies that have actually piloted test bed, or even, it is beyond test bed. It is already current in production stages as well, leveraging on the power of 5G. So with Sentosa and National Heritage Board will be sharing on what they are doing. That's 5G enabled. So starting with Michael and also Firdaus, that's going to share on Singtel and what SDC and Singtel has been working on. So maybe we start off with that first, Firdaus, since you opened up with such a insightful demystifying of what does 5G entail.
Sure.
Over to you guys.
Right. So let me then share my screen again.
Sorry, wait. Maybe before that, noticing that we have quite a lot of audience in the mix. Maybe I'll just do one quick poll first. How about that? While Firdaus, you plot your slides. So, in trying to understand and learn as the Tcube community, we also want to understand where are all of you at when it comes to 5G implementation. So, Firdaus did share about 5G, how it evolved. I literally was thinking about the evolution of my own experiences with 3G, 4G, and 5G. So, what about all of you? In terms of your understanding of 5G implementations, already familiar, not sure, or you're here because you want to hear how to implement them, right? And then this can also help our case study owners to also share a little bit more of their personal journeys and experiences as well. So first question, how would you rate your own understanding? And then the second question would be, what is the potential benefit that's most appealing for your business? So you can also ask both Michael and Hadi the hard questions later as well. What was most beneficial, or what was the biggest benefit that was most appealing for them to embark onto 5G? So let's give it just 30 seconds more. We do have quite a big room today, so just quick answers, top of your mind. How is your understanding of 5G? And what was the most appealing factor to you, in your opinion, when it comes to 5G? So, all right, let's do another 10 seconds. And then we'll see what all of us are feeling. Okay. Yeah, Sharon, I think, yes, let's end the poll so we get to see. Okay, so wow, 43%, I think 43% of the respondents actually mentioned that they've not heard about 5G use cases in tourism. Okay, which is why today I think the 2 case study, even understanding what they were working on, was really fascinating. So hope that it was an opportunity. It will be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions as well, to find out more about what kind of applications. I think that is the general sensing, right? Understand 5G, but not sure how it can be applicable for tourism, and the potential benefit. The highest is, of course, opportunities for innovation. I do see, I'm sensing that all of us here want a bit of energizer when it comes to innovation ideas. So hopefully, that's where we can all begin. All right. Thank you very much. And with that, I think I'll pass it over to Singtel and SDC to share about this incredible partnership that they've built. And of course, in revitalizing one of a very signature destination on Sentosa, the Battle of Fort Siloso. Over to you guys.
Yeah, so thank you again, Vivian. So in this segment, I'll be presenting together with Michael, where we actually share our journey, where we work closely together, to enable, the virtual experience in Fort Siloso, using 5G as the backbone, right? So let me start off with a slide, and I will then later hand over to Michael. Before Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was muted. Apology for that. Yeah, so I was saying that, I'll be presenting this segment together with Michael, where I will share, our journey, where we work closely together, to enable a gaming experience using virtual reality, and using 5G, as the connectivity backbone, right? So I will start off with this presentation, and then I will hand over to Michael. But before we start, when we actually embark on this journey, we actually will post this problem statement, by STB, right? They were saying that most tourist attraction lose attractiveness over time, as there are limits to providing refreshed content. I think you can probably relate to this, especially when you are actually having an area whereby, you wanted to constantly refresh, right? And I think uh, like Sentosa, right? Attractions are massive, and they are very static, and the thematics decorations are most times are not reusable, and space are potentially a constraint, right? And so having that problem statement given to us, this is where we work with SDC, see how 5G solution could be used to provide extended reality, right? So that it could be redeployed and it can be readapted based on the content and the seasons for the particular area, right? And from Singtel, when we work with SDC, we actually provided three parts in deploying this capability. Number one, of course, we provide the 5G connectivity, and this is where the 5G is actually powering the handset, which is the XR handset, where they connect wirelessly to the application using 5G connectivity. Secondly, we actually provide an edge cloud solution. And the idea here is that, we wanted to reduce the latency. It's physics, right? Because we want to, with 5G providing high throughput and low latency, we want to make sure that the content of the application is as close as possible to the user. And the idea here is that with Singtel Edge Cloud, we want to actually move the compute on the headset into the cloud as close as possible. And that would mean then the headset form factor could be as small as possible, so that the majority of the compute processing is actually done on the Edge Cloud, right? And lastly, because of this complexity, we actually provide a single pane of glass, to provide the connectivity and the managing of the cloud using our Paragon platform, where it actually, the users could actually then look at the usage and manage the data plan and so on, right? So these are the three components that, we have provided as part of the trial. And just to give you a glimpse, right, of how the scene was during the trial. So you can see, there are pictures of people with headset provided by SFX, to actually kind of augment, right, the capabilities using on the first Luso bridge. And the video that you see here are basically, the game that they actually can see on the VR headset. So this is just to give you, an idea or the flavor of how the scene was at the first Luso. I will then now hand over to Michael, to share a bit more of his experience from his perspective. Michael?
Thank you, Firdaus. Thank you for giving us an overview about the 5G and the problem statement that was given to you by STB. I'm Michael. I'm one of the assistant CEOs of Sentosa Development Corporation. For this particular project, I oversaw a department which worked very closely with STB and the vendors as well, and of course ST in delivering the Battle of Fort Siloso, a 5G-enabled extended reality experience. It's a proof of concept. So I will attempt to share as succinctly as possible some of our lessons learned. This was the world's first outdoor 5G-enabled extended reality experience. It's jointly developed by the STB, SDC, and Singtel, and it was very kindly funded by GovTech. Okay, there seems to be some issues with the slides. Just give me a second. Here we go. The key objective really was to demonstrate how extended reality technology riding on top of a 5G communications backbone can support enhanced guest engagement in an outdoor environment with minimal purpose-built hardware infrastructure. And the aim really for us was to expose our tourism and technology companies to the potential of XR and 5G and how immersive technologies can help enhance visitor experiences. I'll go on to share a little bit about the actual project. Now, what is this Battle of Fort Siloso really about? First of all, it's a heritage-themed experience to draw guests into a fictional World War II battle at Fort Siloso. And we harness the capabilities of XR technology and 5G, and together with captivating storytelling, immersive audio and visual elements, and more importantly, gamification. This was how we built the XR experience on the Battle of Fort Siloso. So you may ask, why was Fort Siloso chosen as a location? For some of us, in our minds, Fort Siloso was the very old Fort Siloso you remember with wax figurines maybe in the 1990s or early 2000s. In reality today, Fort Siloso on Sentosa is a lot more modern and well developed. For those who are not aware of, actually we have a towering 11-story high treetop trail stretching almost 200 meters where you start off right next to Rasa Sentosa Resort, where you take a lift up to the treetop trail and about 200 meters walk, and you end up where the original Fort Siloso is. What do you see? You see a scenic treetop track on the way to Fort Siloso, and you can literally look out to the sea. There's nothing stopping your visuals from either side. And Fort Siloso really is Singapore's only well-preserved coastal fort with a strong link to the defenses of the country during World War II. And all of that together provided us a perfect backdrop for gaming environment. And of course, the area also had a very strong 5G signal coverage thanks to Singtel. And so that was the reason why Fort Siloso was chosen as a venue for the proof of concept. How did we go about operationalizing this? In May 2022, SDC and STB signed an MOU to embark on this proof of concept. And very quickly after that, we also secured funding from GovTech, and the contract signing was done with Singtel, tech vendor for product development. Within about 6 months of development, we were able to launch our user acceptance test in March 2023. And within 2 months, the trial was finally open to our trade partners. And following that, in the month of June 2023, we also opened up the trial to Sentosa Islander members. And these are, of course, just your usual guests that would come to the island from time to time. They are not trade partners. They may not necessarily be very familiar with technology. Glad to say that all the slots were fully booked. And we concluded the whole proof of concept by July 2023. And we were able to gather the feedback to identify potential areas for improvement. So all in all, within 14 to 15 months from the time we signed the MOU and to the end of the trials, took us about 15 months. I have to say that it's a very, very quick turnaround time, about just slightly more than a year. And so over that time, in the last 2 months, we had about 130 participants over a 2-month period join us on the trial. One of our limitations was, of course, of our hardware availability, because after all, this is a proof of concept. So the throughput and the scale cannot be as high as we would like. And this particular proof of concept worked best at night. So we also have limited time windows for the guests or our trade partners to try them out. But nonetheless, 130 participants is quite a good number. So what are the responses and feedback that we got? On the upside, many of the people who come and try this out felt that it was a realistic and exciting audio and visual effects because as Firdaus has explained earlier, the form factor for the glasses, for the audio, are much lighter than what people are used to because of the edge computing. All the computing is done away from the hardware and in the cloud. So that was a plus point. And on the ground, we had dedicated staff that were well trained, who conducted very comprehensive briefing to the participants, and also along the way ensuring their safety during the trial. And this is an important aspect because it plays into guest experience. If the people managing your trial are not well trained or always showing a grumpy face, I think you're not going to get very good responses. So that was a good point about well-trained staff that were able to be there during the proof of the concept. And of course, I think overall, for those who came to try it out, whether they were guests or trade partners, the process was very straightforward and quite seamless. And in a sense, for proof of concept, it was an interesting process because usually with proof of concept equipment and hardware, sometimes it's a bit tricky and a bit not as smooth. But in this case, it was all done very well and very seamlessly. Now, what are the downsides? There was still some lagging that was experienced by some of the guests. And in some cases, some of the guests, maybe particularly those that may have been older or younger children, for example, they felt that the headset was still nonetheless quite heavy. I think this is possibly because people are not used to having to put glasses on and walk and look from the left to the right, up and down. But these are some of the areas that we could improve. Now, these are some of the lessons learned along the way that I'd like to share. Together with GovTech and STB, by exploring this immersive technology, we are actually very excited to bring novel and digitally innovative heritage experiences at Fort Siloso to our guests. And we hope that this will, in the longer term, really entice our trade partners and those our trade partners to also take on board some of these efforts to try it out for themselves as we go along. Okay, you have to excuse me for a while. I think experiencing some lagging for the slides. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, is to encourage our tourism players to embrace innovation and also as well to leverage on extended reality technology, right, to enhance this immersive engagement with the guests. You know, we can't change Fort Siloso every few months. It will take a lot of money for a lot of these enhancements, CAPEX enhancements. But with XR and with 5G, we're able to refresh some of these from time to time to ensure that even if you revisit a location, you get a fresh experience. Okay. As the slides are being called up, I will just also highlight, actually, there are some areas that could be quite challenging for us. One of the things is we experience when we speak with our trade partners is that it must be viable as a business. Because at the end of the day, if it's not going to be funded by the government or any other entity that's just willing to pour money in, it must be able to survive as a business. And in that sense, the scale, the costs of putting in place the hardware, and more importantly, the content generation is key. So those factors remain consistent with any other attraction that you may have to currently consider when you're putting across any of the new attractions. We also recognize that it's important to have some form of motivation during these extended reality. So what do I mean, right? For example, you could just go with a very simple storytelling approach. But what really, really gets the participants excited is really about gamification and sometimes even prices. And in our case, the reason why the Islander was fully signed up was because this was a very novel experience and only a limited number of slots. So, you know, sometimes fear of missing out really helps people want to come on board, right? Yeah. And trials like this one really are a key step to explore and evaluate unique opportunities for us to continually enhance and refresh Sentosa's tourism offerings, you know, to offer new visitor experiences. And therefore, we hope that by leveraging technology and low infrastructure extended reality experiences, we can minimize the extensive physical infrastructure on preserved heritage sites such as Fort Siloso. It's not good for us to keep building and renovating on preserved heritage sites. So with XR, this gives us another avenue to refresh our offerings. I'll now hand over back to Firdaus to round up our presentation. Firdaus.
Yeah, so thanks, Michael. So I think from Singtel perspective, we also have our own learnings. Like what Michael said, it was a journey that we had together for a year. And I think being the first is always challenging, right? And I think it's also a learning for Singtel and our partners, where we actually, work on really high definition real-time rendering using high power GPUs, right? With multi-users interaction in the augmented reality mode. We have multiple rounds of optimization that are needed to make sure that the application runs seamlessly and smoothly over our 5G network, right? And on top of that, it's not just providing connectivity and edge cloud, it's also to understand the on-site challenges, right? Because, Fort Siloso Bridge is not straight line, right? There are curvatures on the bridge, where, we need to take into account and work with our developers to make sure that this are taken into account in the AR development. And also like what Michael has shared, right? The glaring from the sun, is also kind of like impacting the user experience using the XR glasses in the day. And that was why, the trial and the POC was mainly done in the evening. So to have a good end user experience, right? But ultimately, I think what we have learned here is that, it's a journey where we need to have close collaboration with our partners and agencies, and our developers, to enable this capability, right? We have the understanding of the 5G, we have the understanding of the MAC, but it's all about working closely together to enable this capability, as we go along. I guess that's the main learnings that we have from Singtel. And I think, it was a great experience. And thanks to Michael and team, for the partnership. Right. So I think that's about all we have to share for this session. Yep.
Thank you so much.
I will hand over back to Vivian.
Thank you. It's been a while since I went to Fort Siloso, so Michael, really excited, to also visit and see. And I see questions coming in on the Q&A. I just want to remind our audience again, please start dropping questions in there so we can consolidate them. Do not leave it to the last minute so that our speakers can also evaluate and see and answer them as we go along. All right, so before I invite National Heritage Board with yet another very interesting case study that they've been working on alongside M1, I just wanted to do a little, check-in with our audiences with a short poll. What are some of the roadblocks that all of you face while starting 5G related innovations? I know that many of you probably in the first poll said that majority are not so sure whether the whole 5G be implemented in the whole tourism sector. But maybe after you hear and get inspired by Michael and Firdaus, then you really look at certain things you can implement. What are some roadblocks or potential roadblocks that would be your largest questions right now in your head? So share with us so that we know. So we'll just give it a quick minute here since it's a quick question. I think there's about almost 20 respondents. Let's get a few more response before we invite NHB to share also 5G innovations that you've implemented in your museums. So just a quick one. What are some of the roadblocks that you face while starting 5G related innovation? Is it infrastructure, reliability, security, regulatory, costs, or just not sure how to start? All right, so let's see what the audience are saying. Can we see the results? Okay, so we're quite diverse, I think. So infrastructure deployment, interference in reliability. Okay, I'm looking at our tech experts, Firdaus and Woon. You guys may have to take on all these questions later, right? Cost, then looking at, of course, Michael and Hadi on cost. And of course, unsure of how to start or where to begin. Okay, so with this in mind, I think keep these questions coming. You can, if you have very specific questions of the challenges that you are facing, please start shaping them in the Q&A tab and type them in. We'll hit to the questions soon. All right, and now I'd like to invite Hadi from National Heritage Board to share also a very interesting case study. So Michael brought us outdoors on 5G experiences. Then now we're coming back to something that's also a little bit linked to heritage, our museums. And let's see what NHB has been doing. Over to you, Hadi.
Hey, thanks, Vivian, and welcome to this seminar. I think one of the things that most people have when you look at 5G is it just connectivity? Is it out there in the world? And you need a very expensive smartphone. I think, yes, I think that's one thing if you're looking at the consumer side. What we'll be sharing on the NHB side is how we use 5G more within an internal control environment to deliver the experience that we get in our museums today. If you've been to our museums in the past, they can be quite traditional. You find you do have some immersive experiences, but they normally run on premise or they already run powered on the spot. What we actually did using 5G was to look at how we can leverage the power of the cloud as well as the low connectivity and the high-speed capability in terms of edge compute to move away from expensive infrastructure being placed within on-premise and environment, moving it to the back. But at the same time, also giving the flexibility to deploy different ways of applications and experiences that will enthrall the customer or your visitor. So maybe to give a perspective, what we'd like to just share, this is something that we've been doing as we transform the heritage sector of the last 3 years. We started doing it before COVID. During COVID, we looked at digital experiences where we get to bring content to you when you're at home, and Zoom and a lot of the tools have been very useful. But now, when COVID is in your rear view mirror, what we've done is to get people to come back to the museum, give you that unique experience that you get to see in person. And to do that, what we did was we looked at how we want to translate that experience into what we call the digital experience version 2. And doing so, 5G and edge compute is something that's very useful for you. The reason is a lot of people are going to the cloud today. If you've got and conquered the cloud and put your applications on it, what you would like then next to do is to see how can you bring that experience down right onto the visitor or to the customer itself. And most of the tools that you have today are looking in terms of immersive experience. And even being immersive, it needs to be unique. You need to find a way how to keep people excited, especially if you're going to look at both targeting both locals as well as visitors from overseas. They have a very short time span. So in my little sharing, what we have done is over the last 6 months within our museums, we had actually moved away from our traditional way of operating to start to look at the museum experiences to be delivered off the cloud and using 5G to connect between the cloud as well as the museums itself. And what are these experiences? So I think STB and SDC and Singtel have shared a bit on XR, but we also are looking in more different areas, for example, of augmented reality, virtual reality, and even mixed reality. And these are some of the opportunities that you can use, especially when you look at in the way how edge compute and low latency comes in. So to give a flavor of what we've done, during COVID, we looked at how we could bring some of the exciting experiences within the museum. So for example, like looking at excavation, insights, being able to try something out with a headset. We've done that in the Asian Civilization Museum. Also during COVID, we also had a version of the Tanjung Pagar Railway. There's a virtual railway using the Oculus headset, using the HTC Vive, being able to then get people to explore it without having to be on site. So these are some of the initial experiences you can build. But however, I think what's important is as you go down the 5G route, it opens up new opportunities for you. Spatial computing and complex rendering is something that you can now look at. In the past, you may have a little computer or you may have a server with the NVIDIA card inside and say, look, I would like to do a lot of stuff with it. But hey, what can I do further? Can I use the power of the cloud? Can I have this purchase on tap from some of the cloud providers out there to operate it? Well, the answer is yes. And what we have done within the museum environment was to say, can we do this with real life examples? So what I'm going to show you today over the next course of several slides is to tell you these are case studies we've done. They are already open to public. You can actually visit them in the National Museum. And I'll almost probably give you a quick heads up where they are. And importantly, what we've done was we did it in two steps. One, we looked at how we can translate a real new gallery. So you've got a permanent location and turn it into an interactive space. So we have the new space called Reunion. We use it as an immersive space that combines both F&B, so we've got a cafe, got an activity space, more for seniors to be able to enhance and also utilize technologies to the max. At the same time, what we did was also to bring the content, our heritage content, to them in a more innovative way and something that is bite-sized. And to do that, what we created was we created an immersive 4K projection cave. So what you go in, when you go in, you get to immerse yourself inside using audiovisual capabilities. We also then give them the ability to go and recreate or construct some of the experiences they have in the past. For example, ATMs, phones, and stuff like that. And it's very interesting because people get to try, people get to interact with content which was used previously done as either pictures or just graphics, now using tools that are normally quite familiar with us, but at the same time being able to do it in a very simple and quick manner. I think one of the important aspects in doing so, most people ask us, what's the benefit of it? I think importantly, when you look at trying to be agile and create an exhibition, and you're putting up a gallery, you want to be agile when you start to look at building some of these experiences. Also, you want to make sure that it's secure. So in our environment, we are very careful that you don't actually just open something and somebody gets put in anything that's vulnerable or something gets hacked. So what we've done is we secure the connectivity from the cloud all the way down to where the user is, who's actually engaging in the content and also in the multimedia capabilities that we offer. And that's done across the 5G connectivity. While you may have 5G out in the open, within our museums, we have our own private 5G networks. We use small cell technology and also using some of the new CPE equipment or the new modems as well as routers that we've got M1 to be able to offer to us. And I'll share a bit more details what those are later. But importantly, it also means that we can then centrally manage security, connectivity, and also uptime. And doing so allows us to save costs. Now, why is it important? Because in the past, when we set up a permanent gallery, you end up with a computer room, you got racks, you got a lot of stuff in place. Having to work down in this manner when using 5G plus the cloud capability in the back and edge compute, we actually remove this need. And that's really one area where we save a lot of costs. The other bit also is when you look at delivering high-speed audiovisual experiences. But if you're using things like NVIDIA, you're using Unreal, you want to be able to think quite far down the head to say that, look, you want to look at scaling up. What should I do? Can I actually put more CPUs? Can I put more processing power? I think the important bit, the cloud allows you to do so. And by having a good connectivity with low latency, you would be able to remove the need of having to upscale or uplift your current on-premise infrastructure. But let's not stop there. I think one of the things we also did was we say, hey, if you do have exhibitions, special exhibitions that come and go, and these are for defined periods of time, how can we also bring that experience further down the line to our visitors? So similarly, we do have several exhibitions like Semangat Yang Baru that's tied to the national anthem. And it's really what we did was we looked at extending the level of interactivity that we have with the visitor from 5 or 6 to now 18 to 20, and using NFC tags, even having multilingual digital guides, multiple languages, being able to run content, interactive kiosks, everything off the 5G network. But at the same time, moving away from having to have very expensive computing power or servers upfront. We've moved away actually from something that's expensive to using simple ICT equipment, which are modular, easy to maintain, easy to deploy, and very easy to harden. So stuff like Mac Minis, simple 5G CP equipment actually now dominate our current special exhibitions versus expensive servers and equipment. Also, one thing with the low latency and high bandwidth connectivity, it actually gives you the ability to expand how you want to put the experience. Whether it's trying to raise a flag, pushing older videos, trying to get interactivity by a chatbot, or putting something on an interactive wall. These are certain things that you can do very quickly. And importantly, especially when you look at special exhibitions, when we put them up, it takes us normally about 6 months to build a special exhibition. So we need to be very nimble in terms of developing it and tapping on some of these capabilities. And hence, having something that's in place in a simple toolkit does really help us. But not stopping there. It also allows you to overlay new immersive experiences across, in our case, an existing exhibition. So we have this LKY 100 digital trail. It just runs off your phone. It's really done in augmented reality. So we actually use the current content and the current environment within the Semangat Yang Baru exhibition, plus our history galleries, to be able to build upon an augmented trail that people can go in to scan artifacts, look at digital touch points, interact, as well as get content. But this also means that in this case, the users today just use the current basic phone and image recognition to be able to embark on these trails. But in the back end, the content is still connected and served across the 5G network. What does it mean to us is that your devices from IoT to your interactive pieces can now be deployed very quickly, meaning also at the same time in the future, you're going to have like an interactive trail across an exhibition, a new gaming hall, or even in the outdoors. You can overlay them with some of these new tools. It is also a way in which we look at how we can bring and also quicken the way how we deploy exhibitions or content. So if you've got very good content, we've got this exhibition still running, it's called Now Boarding. It's really looking at the Singapore identity in the last few hundred years. But how do we actually look at bringing this content very quickly to user and reducing the amount of complexity required? Importantly, because when you start having a lot of legacy equipment in place, it tends to be quite troublesome. You need to put in, for example, multiple operating systems, multiple connectivities, running cables, and those were something that to us are costs and also bugbears, especially in the fact that these are normally the things that you put in, and after a certain number of period of months, you got to take them out. So having to have a 5G connectivity with low latency bandwidth allows us to move away from having wires, but translating it over the air and making it something that's very simple and very easy for your vendors to be able to utilize. So how we've done it is rather than getting the vendor to work out a solution, we provide them with the building blocks that they just tap upon, and they focus more into building a better solution versus thinking about how the tech works. I think one of the other things that most people like is gamification. And I think gamification is really cool. But apart from having to play games out there, what we also wanted to try out was say, hey, let's try something that's physical. You guys, we are not in that era. Disco is something that you actually do in the past when you're young. So we actually wanted to give the same experience for visitors know really what disco is. But to do that, we also then wanted to say, hey, can we actually put in both validation? Can we actually build your dance, take it over video, stream it, process it, put it on the cloud, send it to you, and then you can use it on your social media, but also being very secure, elastic, and scalable, because you're looking at not 10 people, you're looking at thousands of people who's going to try it out, doing it, especially in a high volume environment, and be able to do this very quickly and at the same time without having to have overly high costs. So having a 5G environment together with a cloud allows us to do it. So today, when we started this in June this year, we did about 2,000 people have actually tried it. But importantly, when we put up the whole experience, most of our current experiences and exhibitions, especially what I've just mentioned, they're looking at visitors between 80 to 100,000 within that period who will visit our exhibitions. And you're looking at that number of eyeballs. So for us, it means that having to be able to reuse the technology, being able to deploy it quickly, trying to extend or expand the investment you put in across the number of visitors you have, this really makes sense in terms of the cost savings that you most probably will have. What I would like to say at this point is 5G is not a magic bullet, right? It's not going to save you much extensive costs. But if you know in terms of your solution together, but at the same time being able to then look and work with your current industry partners, your vendors, to say, hey, look, guys, these are some new tools you can use, change the way how you build your interactives. This most probably will give you agility, and agility normally translates to in terms of some cost savings and ability to be able to remove some of the unnecessary overheads that we have. Rather than put some learning experiences, what I would like to share is what we see the 5G landscape would help our museums. So we're looking at something that's not just immersive experiences. Today, our 5G networks is also looking in terms of helping us with our ticketing systems. When you visit our museums, we profile you, the data that you push in. Today, if you've gone to some of our museums, you see our robots doing guides across into some of the interactives, expanding it on autonomous robots and how you can help it to make it a bit more seamless and more exciting to the museum, and also being able to use this as part of new innovation spaces in our premises. So it is something that if you're looking in terms of, hey, what's next and what can be done, I think you may want to look at 5G as an enabler that is something that's potential for you to be able to expand. But I also at the same thing, just to highlight, I think procurement is something what everybody says. How can I buy this without having to spend too much money? I don't know what I'm doing today. What should I do? How do I jumpstart this process? What we did with 5G was we took the more, I would say, conservative approach. We work with IMDA. We work with our industry partners like M1, Amazon Web Services. We worked onto an outcome-based procurement exercise where we did it on a trial base. So we started very small. We identified 2 locations, a National Museum and our Children's Museum. We got it right. And then after that, move towards scaling up to be able to show that it can be delivered. And this is very important because when you have bosses out there who say that, look, it's going to be an investment. How can you show me that return on investment? What's this cost that you have? How can I amortize the cost across number of visitors or number of users? I think this is something that you will need to be able to explain clearly. And having it to do it on an outcome-based, a very systematic approach, I think would be something that already would help. But I think to summarize it, we see that 5G really combined with the cloud edge compute is really an enabler that really is going to help us transform our heritage sector. Singapore today is what we've done in Singapore has not been replicated within Asia Pacific. We hope that this is something that we can bring forward and more people within the tourism sector to adopt. I think this is a very good opportunity if you're going to go ahead of the curve. I think importantly, the key takeaways when you're going to go through this journey, the first thing, you need to be obsessed with what the customer wants. You must deliver what your visitors, for us in our case, or your customer needs. Then we look at working backwards. So for example, rather than putting hardware in place, we work with providers like M1. We work with our industry partners and vendors to see what's needed and then identify what's the simple tools or equipment that can solve the issue rather than having to put something big. But at the same time, you want to be innovative and look at inventing and simplifying something so that you will be able to come and put something out quickly, take months versus years, and then scale up from there. One of the things I would always like to share, especially to the industries, you want to think big in terms of what your strategy is. You want to act fast because I think the technology always changes, but do start small. And I think the lessons we also learned from the SDC, they had a very nice experience, which I also personally attended, also in our museums and our vendors. Starting small, being successful, gives that reassurance to your bosses, your stakeholders, that you most probably be able to do well. So I'm just going to stop here and perhaps then hand it back to Vivian to continue with the seminar.
Thank you so much, Hadi. I just want to really call, I really love Semangat Yang Baru's exhibition. You're so right now that I understand the problem statement and the things that you guys tried to solve, using 5G to enable the whole experience for the audience. Those in the crowd have not been there, I would highly recommend. It's really interesting and fascinating to see it from this point of view now that we hear both case studies share on a little bit more about the intention, objectives, and their whole vision to launch such a project. We are going to go into questions really soon, but I also see that we are also at the 5 o'clock mark where we promised, but I do want to hope that our speakers are going to stay just a little longer to answer the Q&A questions. But before that, maybe just we would like to get some feedback first from the crowd. After listening to the experiences by both Michael and also Hadi, so just want to understand everybody's opinions. Does this give at least a better sensing of 5G solutions? And also, if you're a recurring community member as well of our Tcube community, let us know so that it also helps us to shape the rest of the content for the remaining years better as well. Then we'll hop into questions. Okay, I'm looking at questions as well on this side. I'm seeing that there's of course questions of there's one there's two questions that is very much focused on performance issue and network connection issue. Maybe we will start off with Firdaus and also Woon from M1, who has been working together with Hadi of NHB. So maybe the two tech experts can guide our community a little bit on performance related issue, right, when it comes to network or tech solutions. Maybe can we start off with that? So Edmund and Anand both are asking about questions more tech related, perhaps, or even how ready. I'm just trying to expand the question as well. So Anand and Edmund do fill in with follow-up questions if needed on whether is it the infrastructure, is it available for Singapore, especially if we as tourist partners would like to pilot some of that. Yeah, Woon or Firdaus, anyone first? Maybe Woon would like to go first.
Sure. I think for the first question, performance issue always occur with network connection. I would say not necessary. So right from the when we do the 5G project and during the design phase, we will take a look at the 5G network capabilities, then coupled with the user requirements. So once we identify, we implement, and we install and deploy, then this is where we will look at various components. So we consider it of a couple of multiple layers, which means that the connectivity layer, the device layer, the infrastructure layer, as well as the application layer. So this is how we diagnose if there is any issues on that.
Yeah, and I will echo to what Wood has said, right? I think we need to actually look at the use case and the requirements that are needed to fulfill the solutions. And we demark the areas where it need to be further optimized, right? And just one example here is that, while 5G provides the high throughput and low latency, if there are applications that require low latency and time sensitive, then, one of the solution is to introduce edge computing, to bring the computer closer to the edge. These are some of the things, because without that, you will still be delayed by the propagation delay, right? So these are some of just example. And devices also another thing where we need to then look into what the devices capabilities to achieve the requirements that are needed to enable the solutions. Yeah.
Okay, so it is still working very closely with, of course, tech providers, right? I'm sure that those questions are a bit too generic as well. So if any one of you has very specific targeted question on customization, I think that would also greatly help. There's one question that I would like to direct it to Michael and Hadi. Probably from project owner's perspective as well, someone who's anonymous has asked, 5G, is it necessary for the presented implementations, or is it just as an enhancement? I think, thinking ahead, thinking aloud, I think probably our attendees thinking of like, how should I pitch it to my internal stakeholders, or is this one of the questions that they may face? So Michael and Hadi, you guys are the ones that signed off projects like that. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll go first before I hand over to Hadi. I think the short answer is that it's both. First, it can enhance what you have today, existing. You may have existing ideas that could already be working using existing infrastructure, but you may be able to enhance the delivery through using 5G instead of a purpose-built infrastructure. So that's one aspect of it. You can enhance what you have today. I think the other part is with 5G, actually it opens up tremendous new areas that perhaps as an idea or as a concept was already existing in the past, but very difficult to implement because it wasn't practical or the cost was prohibitive. But now with 5G, and with potential savings in some areas, it now becomes possible, either as a business or as a particular pet project, if there's a certain message you want to put out there. So I think in reality, it's both. It can be used today to enhance your existing whatever you have out there today. But because it's also a new technology, it really does make potential concepts you've had in the past that was not realistic to implement, but doable today. I really want to echo what Hadi mentioned in his presentation, that we just have to be careful that 5G is not a silver bullet. It's also not meant to, all out help you save costs. It may help you save costs in certain areas, but you still need to invest in infrastructure and technology. And like we said, some things don't change, right? Content is king. That doesn't change because 5G has come along. And unless there are ways for us to create and deliver content in a cheaper, a faster way, 5G alone won't solve that problem, right? So I think that's how I see 5G affecting the whole industry and the landscape. Thank you.
And I think Michael's got several good points, and I think I'd like to resonate. Those are something that's really important to take note if you're looking at implementing 5G as part of your overall solution stack or suite. But also from our side, I guess what's important is it's really the business use case or the applicability you're looking at. For our museums, we had two areas which we needed to improve. In the past, we were having a lot of servers and computers sitting within the museum galleries. They're very expensive to maintain, right? At the same time, when you find that you look at support and you look at in terms of having people to come down to fix things that doesn't work, that takes turnaround time. By having to move it to the cloud, and when we put it onto the cloud, it can be centrally managed. So the 5G for us means that in terms of implementation, I actually save in terms of overall risk, in terms of breakage, in terms of service support. However, yes, today in our museums, we do have Wi-Fi, we do have connectivity, but being nimble, we found that the 5G setup that we have actually worked with M1 makes sense. So our CPEs, our end equipment, they're not expensive, they're very simple. We have two versions of it. We've got one from Nokia and we've got another one from, I think it's RandNet. They're very, I would say that they're very reliable, they're not expensive to operate. And they really actually, if I were to compare with my cost of having to upgrade my Wi-Fi equipment to Wi-Fi 6 or whichever version in the future, they're still much cheaper because I could choose when I need to deploy them. At the same time, we also can look at in terms of how you can do it as a service. So one of the things that M1 did for us is rather than we buy the equipment and the link, we take this whole exercise in terms of implementing 5G as a managed service where we just pay a flat fee per month per location to use it. And that really simplifies our OPEX or your operating costs as well as operating model. So if you're within that space and you find that you can modify your operations to make it a bit more efficient, I think this will be one opportunity. The other bit also maybe to touch on for those of you out there who are looking at saying, can I may have a cloud, but I may not want to go everything to the cloud. It can be very expensive. That's a very big monster out there. What do I do? Well, you can use 5G to bridge between a full cloud environment into a hybrid setup. So you can still have on-premise. You can also have the cloud for certain content. It can be content, it can be data, it can be even some parts of audio visual. But I think some of the more intense processing done on site. So this gives you the ability for you to hedge your bets across and also put something together in terms of solution that most probably makes sense. So those are, I think, some of the good implementations if you're going down that route that 5G may be quite useful for you.
Thank you so much, Hadi. I think both of you and Michael as well have really shared. It's so multifaceted, right? It's not just a single, because it's it saved costs or because it's just for an experience, but rather it's a very deliberate business case that both of you have put up as well. It's unique for your organization. And I think Hadi, you address one of the very key points, which I believe it's also a question for our audience. So I do want to touch on this as a final question on cost, right? When it comes to how some tips, or rather, not just cost per se, but how are some tips that you can share with our audience on how to negotiate or discuss or propose right? Or having this cost analysis with your stakeholders. What are some of the ideas that you might have? Yeah, so both this question goes out to both Hadi and Michael. And I think Firdaus, you and Woon as well, we would love to hear it from solutions provider point of view, because I think there's questions also on like, how are solutions providers charging, right? So one is, how do you put up a business case to ask for budget? And then to the tech providers, what kind of solutions out there for even the hotel industry attractions to pilot anything or do any POC at a smaller cost, or how its costing is going to be like. Yeah. So maybe from the project owner side first, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. I would have to say, generally speaking, when you are just doing a proof of concept, the cost would, by unit cost, would be a lot higher because proof of concepts have no scale. The technology you're using is really, you're probably at the forefront of it. So using a proof of concept to look at costing is not actually very useful. However, from the landscape, I've seen how it has developed. I think technology is maturing at a very fast pace. And when technology matures at that kind of pace, cost will also correspondingly drop. Not technology really at the forefront, but those that are really good enough ready to be deployed, the cost will drop, right? So in that sense, I would say I would encourage, sometimes we tend to take a wait and see approach and let's see how much cost drop, let somebody else make all the mistakes before I jump into the market. I think that would be, that would traditionally have been a smart way of doing things. But I think in this particular case, where 5G is really at the cusp of us launching new experiences, I think the first mover will have a lot of definite advantage. Of course, you need to look at the costings. And I think with technology advancing, the cost will drop quite significantly. I think today, a lot of the costs we look at is a function of how long we expect that particular, let's say in the case of an attraction, of an extended reality attraction is out there. How long do we expect to use it? How long do you amortize it over? Can you find actually corporate sponsors to work with you who are willing to have their names being used as the corporate sponsors or the main title sponsors? I think that's the way to do it, and really look at win-win business deals for both parties. Because I do reckon that if you go on this alone, it may take a little while longer for you to even see breaking even or even making profits from a commercial standpoint perspective. So look for willing partners out there willing to be first movers. I think that's the way to do it for the moment. Thanks.
Well, maybe just like to add on, I think if you're looking at it on a commercial standpoint, yes, I think the KPIs does matter. Economies of scale is actually very important. So coming from an NHB standpoint, and I think my bosses do the same thing. They do ask the same questions. Look, these are investments. How do you get it back? So my answer to them was yes. In the very first onset, we were not going to see much savings. It will be an investment. However, it does have a tipping point when you do have scalability and you have partners as well as your stakeholders understanding that these are new opportunities that can take place. So when we first started in January this year, we had Reunion, that's a fixed exhibition space. It's a gallery. We started with Sembangan yang Baru, and then we kept going on and on. But after we hit the 6th exhibition, people get to see that, hey, actually, it does make sense. Well, the cost is higher. But in terms of overall experience, overall level of satisfaction, you do get that return from it. So I guess that I think that what Michael said, you must look at it in the fact that if you want to do something, start now. Do it small, show that it's going to work, show it's scalable. I think that's very important. And then at the same time, work internally. You most probably will have to engage and transform a lot of your stakeholders to get that support. And as you go over time, that will most probably then determine what's the scale you're going to look at. One of the things I would also like to highlight, well, cost, it's not really just the telco cost or the 5G cost. There is a lot of other additional overheads which you can use to your benefit or to your advantage if you're looking at cost efficiency. So look at support. How you're paying for your support today? You have people on site. How many times your system breaks? Look at your security costs. How much penetration tests, code scans, and all this thing, you keep doing it, and they cost a lot of money. Can you save that if you were to centralize it? If you're using on a cloud, can a cloud absorb some of this cost, and where you can centralize some of these tools like APIs and all that, where instead of having to redo it over and over again. So these are some other areas which you will want to look at and then use them as justification points versus just saying that, hey, 5G is expensive. Yeah. And of course, I think one of the things, the industry and also the technology has progressed a fair bit. I would say to leaps and bounds, maybe within the next 1 to 2 years, that cost will go down in terms of connectivity. So you most probably will just have to start off, be in that space, demonstrate where your cost drivers are that you are putting together, which are the key ones you want to demonstrate that you can save, and then over time, the net effect will be something that most probably be positive.
Okay, yeah, and to wrap it up, Firdaus and Woon, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to echo what Michael and Adi has said, right? I think my advice to the tourism industry is not to wait, because 5G is already at a steady state in Singapore, where you can actually use it, to enable some of the capabilities that you want to do, right? Because like what we have done with SDC in Sentosa, trialing extended reality in Fort Siloso. So there are many things that you actually can unfold with the 5G and also with our edge computing solution, right? And that's why from Singtel perspective, right? We also have the lab where we actually encourage our partners and our customers to come and enable some of the capabilities that they want to test using 5G. And we believe that to see is to believe, and we also walk the talk with them, right? So these are some of the things that we do help our partners to so-called soften the initial investment costs. And of course, we do walk to talk with them, on the business case analysis, and show to them, how 5G could actually benefit, right? Like what Hadi has said, it's not only connectivity, but you look into the whole scheme of things, right? The operation and the whole ecosystem that is enabling the capability. Yeah.
I think just to add on, I have 2 points, because the thing is, if we are talking about connectivity, a lack of connectivity, right, or building a new base station can be very expensive. But I think it's currently right now, it's just for the entire industry or in the Singapore context, in terms of connectivity, I think all the operators have achieved 95% of a 5G coverage in Singapore. So if the connectivity is there, the connectivity is going to be seamless, I think that will be a reduced the barrier of coming in. So of course, as Firdaus has mentioned as well, the lack of devices. Yeah, there are a couple of reasons for that. Last time was having a chipset shortage for 5G. COVID, as well as Singapore is one of the first country that adopts the latest technology of 5G, which is 5G SA, right? So I think that things at this particular point of time, 2023 moving forward, I think things have stabilized. I believe there will be more 5G devices coming out into the market. This is what we have seen from M1's perspective. And I believe that the cost will start to come down for the devices as well. So that creates a more conducive environment for the audience as well.
All right, thank you so much. I think with all our speakers are giving a very positive outlook about 5G. It's definitely beyond just about connectivity. And of course, like what Michael said, it is here to stay. And Hadi has also elaborated that, it's beyond just the whole tourism experiences as well. It's also cost saving. It's about a whole ecosystem. And of course, Woon and Firdaus are sharing very positive stories from the tech provider's point of view. And of course, good news is that, yeah, it's getting more options for devices, and the technology is also getting cheaper. And I think all it takes is to really kickstart and start having conversations as a team, as an organization, and reach out to providers like Singtel, like M1, who are also here to walk the journey, right? To help enable a more digital transformation or more interactive experience for all our attendees as well. So yeah, with that, I think we overran quite a bit. Thank you so much to all the speakers for joining, and also sharing all your knowledge as well. Can we just close with a photo? Sharon, yeah, I need your help. So can we have all the speakers just look into the camera and smile? Yeah, okay, 1, 2, 3. All right, Sharon, I hope you got it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And thank you once again to all our participants who are still in the room. Please remember to just fill in the feedback form if you haven't before you go, so that it also helps us enhance your experience as part of the community. So thank you all so much again for coming to our Tcube event. Have a great weekend ahead and a great long weekend ahead, actually, for all of us. Yep. So thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, Michael, Hadi, Woon, and Firdaus. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.